You're listening to the Night Stalker Rescue. Episode 2. I momentarily released my grip on the transmit switch, my mind going delirious with relief. How was this possible? In this pre-planned attack, the enemy would have been swarming the crash site within minutes, with 40 fighters charging the wreck. How had the surviving pilot possibly slipped into the jungle before being captured? Ian continued,
My assessment is that this pilot will be headed due north. The U.S. amphibious fleet is already dispatching boats to the coast. By the time the pilot gets there, he'll have Navy vessels patrolling to find him.
We had to change course fast. We were still moving at a brisk clip, though the increased density of plant life slowed our descent toward the low ground. Before I could confirm that my team had heard Ian's transmission, Worthy was already redirecting our movement and transmitting.
Shifting course northwest.
I quickly resumed communications with Ian over the command net. Did we load a frequency for his survival radio? It was a valid question. Ian had loaded so many contingency frequencies into our radios that I couldn't keep them straight, short of consulting the coded list I carried, and there was no time for that now.
Channel 32 on your command radio is the emergency frequency. If the pilot took his survival radio out of that wreck, that's what he'll be tuned into. I already transmitted that your team is inbound. No response from the pilot, but that could be because I'm outside of range.
Or because he was too busy running for his life to answer. Call sign?
Aircraft call sign was Beast 36.
I flipped the channel of my command radio to the survival frequency, no small feat when moving through the jungle at night, and transmitted at once. Beast 36, Beast 36, this is an American ground unit approximately 1 click northwest of your crash site. We are moving north to link up along your evasion route to the north. Send your location when able. I continued moving, the prospect of a response dancing like butterflies in my stomach. But I heard nothing, which I supposed was to be expected. For the pilot, activating, much less monitoring his radio wouldn't be a priority while he could hear the enemy combing the jungle to find him. The onus was on me to make radio contact, and I'd have to repeat the message every few minutes until he replied. In the meantime, I marveled at the fact that a survivor had managed to slip away from the wreckage. Whoever this pilot was, now on the run in a desperate attempt to evade capture, I knew only one thing for certain. He was very, very good. That much shouldn't have come as a surprise. The enemy had shot down a little bird, and those were flown by the Army's 160th SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. To call that organization legendary would be an offense to their true accomplishments worldwide, most of which were highly classified. Simply put, the 160th flew the most high-risk missions imaginable, using the most specialized helicopters on the planet, with a unit creed proclaiming their ability to arrive on target plus or minus 30 seconds anywhere in the world. But like every storied military unit throughout history, the true strength of the 160th lay not in their equipment, but their people. Our surviving pilot was a Night Stalker, the 160th's not-so-unofficial nickname, and that term carried a lot of hard-earned implications. Night Stalker crews underwent extensive training in evading capture, so we were dealing with a pro. He'd already managed to flee the wreckage, which was impressive enough. Now, his priority would be to distance himself from the crash site and stay hidden until the first search and rescue team arrived. Given our chance proximity to an aircraft shoot-down on this island, that first team would be us. I tried contacting him again. Still no response. I consulted my GPS as we moved. The accuracy was degraded when under thick canopy, but we would be intersecting the azimuth due north of the crash site soon. However, until we received a response from the pilot, we could do little but follow his likely path toward the coast, transmitting every few minutes while trying to duck enemy patrols. But the sun would be rising soon, raising the stakes for everyone. I sent a third radio transmission. Beast 36, American ground unit now approximately 500 meters north of the crash site. Send your location. No response. Irritated, I let go of my transmit switch and searched for Worthy's form moving through the leaves ahead. He was gone. I stopped for a moment, looking left and right, and realizing that I should have been able to see him. Then I heard repeated bursts of static over my earpiece. He was keying his radio repeatedly, signaling that he was unable to verbally transmit. I threw myself to the jungle floor, knowing that Kasper and Riley would do the same behind me. Readying my weapon from the prone, I tried to sense whatever Worthy had detected. He'd chosen to go to ground rather than open fire, so we must have sensed at least a chance of us evading enemy contact. Trying to slow my breathing, I listened to the night jungle humming around me. I detected nothing out of place, so Worthy's cue must have been visual, and from ground level, my nostrils thick with the smell of rotting leaf litter and mud, I could see nothing. As it turned out, I didn't have to. Instead, I heard it just a moment later, the rustle of foliage in a unified sweep toward us, some unseen enemy patrol coming from our front. The sound of their movement was close, and I was certain that they had either walked directly over Worthy or were about to step on him. But the noises swept to my left side, perhaps 10 feet away through the jungle, headed southwest. The movement of brush was joined by the scrape of metal on fabric, boots traversing muddy jungle, and the clank of magazines in loose equipment pouches. If my team had been moving in anything but single file, we'd have been compromised by now. Given the size of the element passing us, that confrontation would have been catastrophic. This must have been a squad-size element, 10 or 12 men by the sound of it, and we'd accomplished little but breaking contact at best and being wiped out at worst. The enemy patrol continued out of earshot, continuing their sweep southwest until their movement gave way once again to the countless songs of insects and amphibians chanting in the night. Pinching my eyes shut, I waited another 10 seconds before Worthy spoke over my earpiece.
Sorry about that, David. Couldn't see them until their lead guy broke brush a few feet away.
I brushed a stream of sweat away from my brow, feeling a flicker of doubt. Had Worthy missed something that a more senior point man would have caught, or had he done as well as anyone under the circumstances? Either was possible. As I prepared to transmit a response, I heard an African-American voice over my earpiece. The accent was so authentic, so perfectly rehearsed, that it took me a moment to recognize the speaker as Riley.
"You're ghosting us, motherfucker. I don't care who you are back in the world. You give away our position one more time, I'll bleed you, real quiet, leave you here. Got that?"
Another Predator quote. Ill-timed, to be sure, but at least morale was still high. Kasper spoke next, addressing me.
"That wasn't the only group of shitheads out here, David. We don't get a hold of this flyboy, it's a matter of time before we get in a gunfight. And I like shooting fuckers as much as the next guy, but that ain't gonna help the pilot."
Yeah, I agreed. Let me try him again before we continue movement. Hang on. Switching my grip to my command radio's transmit button, I sent another transmission over the survival frequency. Beast 3-6, American ground unit is due north of the crash site. Send your location. I heard nothing in response, and considered repeating the transmission before we continued moving. We should have had the broadcast range to reach the pilot's survival radio, plain and simple. It was possible that he was hearing us and merely unable to respond, though that was unlikely. Even if he was transmitting in the blind, Ian should have been able to pick up his traffic and relay to us. I tried to think what I'd do if I were in the pilot's situation, and after a few moments of consideration, the answer came to me. If I were flying over an enemy-held island with no reported American troops and then shot down only to receive immediate radio contact asking for my location, I probably wouldn't respond either. The pilot could hear us, I decided. He just didn't trust us. I keyed the mic and transmitted to the pilot one more time. "Listen, brother. In a few hours, this island's going to be swarming with American forces trying to find you, but you don't have that kind of time. I momentarily released the radio button, then keyed it once more. Think any of these terrorist assholes would know your unit motto? Well, I do. NSDQ, Night Stalkers Don't Quit. Now, I've got a team of Americans ready to retrieve you, and your odds of leaving this island alive are low, even with us at your side. Without us, they're zero. Give us a location and we'll move to you. Radio silence. I wiped the burning sweat from my eyes with the back of my hand. My throat felt constricted. If this pilot didn't believe me, then he was doomed. And we probably were too, because we wouldn't stop looking for him. But in this jungle, the odds of finding anything but an enemy patrol by accident were slim to none. Then a voice responded. It was garbled, virtually unintelligible with static, but I could make out a string of numbers. Programming them into my GPS, I saw the 8-digit grid was 300 meters northeast of our current location. That was no small distance in the current terrain, but we now had a fixed point to move to, and the enemy didn't. Good copy, I replied. Stay put. We're headed to you. ETA 40 minutes or so, depending on terrain. Stay hidden until we get there. We're a bunch of gringos in native garb carrying American weapons. You won't miss us. A static-filled, unintelligible response came and went before Worthy's voice came over the tactical frequency.
I copy it all, David. What are we waiting for?
We were on the move again in seconds. The terrain hadn't gotten any easier to traverse, but now I felt invigorated, covering ground as easily as if I were floating over it. For the first time, we were heading to the surviving pilot's known location. We didn't know who he was, but an American on this remote island was as good as a family member in danger. And even under the current circumstances, the pilot probably didn't realize how much danger he was in, because based on our location on Holo, the man responsible for hunting him was the most dangerous on the island. And now that he'd taken down an American helicopter, probably the most dangerous man in the Philippines. His name was Khalil Nuruddin. Unlike many of his terrorist contemporaries, he had no reason to pursue a life of violence, and that was what scared me most about him. Khalil had been born to an affluent Christian family in Manila and attended the University of London on full scholarship, and there, due to circumstances that no one seemed to know, he'd converted to Islam and assumed his current name. Instead of returning to Manila, he'd traveled to Holo Island to join the ranks of Abu Sayyaf. This was a confounding move. Any number of international terrorist organizations would have welcomed a Western-educated convert with open arms. Abu Sayyaf, by contrast, was a homegrown movement whose strength lay in its family ties. Since its inception, it had largely disintegrated into a militant group interested in self-sustainment. Many in the ranks of modern Abu Sayyaf were bloodthirsty kids. Sure, they managed a little Islamic rhetoric here and there, but for the most part, their decision-making was a binary equation of ransom money or beheading. But Khalil had inexplicably chosen to join his local terrorist movement, surely recognizing that his odds of being accepted in the insular power structure were close to nil. And against all odds, he'd managed to gain a growing audience of loyal followers. Before tonight, Khalil Nuruddin didn't warrant mention on the international stage of terrorist leadership, much less Defense Department-sponsored allocation of the top national military assets. Those elite units had their hands full killing or capturing the top global leadership, an endless cycle tantamount to cutting the grass. My team existed to pull the weeds. In a year, Khalil would have enough followers and security to protect himself against being targeted. But tonight, it only would have taken 4 men to slip into a jungle camp, kill him in his sleep, and vanish with nary a headline to speak of. But we'd been sent in too late. One pilot had already paid the price for that, and now it was up to my team to ensure that the second made it home safely. The sun was rising now, and we stripped our night vision to find the jungle equally green by day, though this brightness belonged to nature, not night vision. Lush vegetation exploded from all directions, from the undergrowth to treetops. Even the tree trunks were concealed by leaves, or too covered by moss to disrupt the rich green around us, pierced only by the first golden beams of sunlight penetrating the canopy. Plumes of mist wafted across the streaks of light as the sounds of nighttime jungle were replaced by obnoxiously loud bird calls. Their shrill cries played chorus to the undulating chirps of forest creatures rippling through the underbrush around us, concealing our movement as we approached the pilot's location. Once we were within 50 meters, I transmitted to the pilot. "Beast 3-6, Beast 3-6, you should hear our movement any second. When you do, give us an audible." I started to make out something gray to our front, its color alien amid the lush greenery shielding it. At first, we only caught glimpses between the snaking tangle of trees, leaves, and vines, but as we pushed closer, we saw a water-soaked wall of craggy volcanic rock. It wasn't a unified cliff face, but a formation of giant stones with vine-coated surfaces rising 20 feet skyward. We moved parallel to the rock face, keenly aware that an enemy force could easily pin us down against this impassable terrain feature. The pilot should have known that too, and sought the densest possible vegetation, someplace where evasion would be possible in every direction. Why would he risk hiding among these rocks? Some of the stones in this formation were tremendous in size, jagged boulders with the scalloped appearance of hand-carved arrowheads. I spotted one sliver of darkness among the stone, then another. These were crevices leading deeper into the rock formation, their entrances partially shielded by creeping vines draped across the stone. Upon closer inspection, the entire primordial structure was pitted with innumerable shadowy crevices between boulders, some of them big enough to conceal a person from outside view. Would the pilot have risked crawling into one of those, a certain dead end? But the more I thought about it, the more hiding in one of these caves made sense. If you knew a rescue force was coming to your location, then it was a hell of a place to make a last stand. So too would that strategy explain the sudden absence of radio contact. The cave would have blocked the signal, requiring the pilot to transmit from the open before hiding again. I keyed my radio. "Beast 3-6, we're here." The Night Stalker Rescue is a production of Fathom Curve Media. Written by Jason Kasper, performed by Justin Price and Tara Novi. Sound design by Darren Bowling. Casting and original recording by Audio Sorceress. Produced by Andrew Watts for Fathom Curve Media, an imprint of Severn River Publishing.